Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Steven Eats His... Either I drive him to this or he's a compulsive eater. I'm not sure which is the case here, because I think I'm bringing this on, that I'm stressing this poor soul into eating on camera. I'm sorry if I'm responsible for that. I feel terrible. I feel terrible. We're all stressed in Cleveland.
I would have guessed the Browns would have done that.
Yeah, my God, they're going to be ordering like 7,000 pizzas if they're stress eating in Cleveland. Welcome to the Browns post-game show. The Browns lose 33-19. I want to start this show. I think the way Julie Andrews in Sound of Music would say, "Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start." All right. I just feel like I have to make cultural references because there's no other culture in watching the Cleveland Browns. The very beginning of this is, we can ask it intelligently, or I can ask it like it should be asked. The season gets underway. It's like, why is Hugh Jackson still on the couch? Okay, that would be the one way of putting it. And everybody knows that, we hired Dorsey. Dorsey didn't get to hire his own coach. As a result, Hugh didn't get his offensive coordinator. He had the play calling taken away from him. And so there was this dysfunction created on day one. Now everyone's writing about it. I've been telling you about it for months. There is no reason to read Cleveland.com. Listen to this program, because common sense has more at work for it than all of whatever power they allegedly have in press credentials. Fuck them. Quite honestly, they know nothing. I know business inside out. All right. I may be overweight, not be able to see my own dick, but I can. I assure you, I can. Yeah, I know it's graphic, but I can see from a mile away dysfunction coming. So, right off the bat, here's the simple explanation of all this. There's only one person who can call the shot that keeps Hugh Jackson and keeps Dorsey from having his own head coach, and that is Jimmy Haslam. All right? There's nobody more powerful in the organization than the guy at the top. And you're saying, okay, that's really remedial, Mr. Moohead, but it isn't being talked about, and it should be. Everybody is saying, fire this guy, fire that guy. But I want to remind every one of you that Jimmy Haslam will still be here. Now, if you don't believe in what I'm about to say, I urge you to go someplace else and get the drivel that they're feeding you. This is the truth. All right? I'm just going to give you the cold, hard dick of truth. Because when you're not looking, the big dick of truth comes out and slaps you right in the face. And here it comes. Literally, here it comes. You got a head coach who is 1-31 who keeps his job. The general manager who you hired doesn't even have the authority to get rid of him, because Haslam tells him, if you want this job, you must keep Hugh Jackson. All right?
Wow.
That's a bad decision right off the bat. Bad owners are going to continue to make bad decisions. Don't believe me? Take a look at history. Worst team in basketball gets LeBron James, all right? And basically Dan Gilbert inherits him. Team goes on to win, make the playoffs. LeBron loses. They become the worst team in basketball. LeBron comes back. They win a championship. 6 games into LeBron being gone, they're the worst team in basketball, and the coach has been fired. All right? Now, there's only one thing, because this is all different players, folks. There's only one commonality, and that's the drunken midget. That's Dan Gilbert, the meddler. Because only he is capable of making the decisions that are called upon. He's the one who decided to push the send button on the drunken letter about LeBron. He's the one who said to the press that we got a great roster here and that we're going to compete for the 7th or 8th seed. He's the one.
Wow. Preach.
He did not like who Ty Lue was playing. He wants to see the younger players, and he's a meddler. And you know something? What I'm going to tell you now is the honest truth. Owners who are meddlers, Dan Snyder, excuse me, I got something caught in my throat. Owners who are meddlers, Art Modell, God damn it, I just wish that would go away. They find a way to create dysfunction in an organization. And the reason is, and Gilbert's the best example because he's drunk, he's short, which is huge. Being short, follow the yellow brick road. Being short is really significant in all of this.
The plane.
Yeah, exactly. Tattoo, stand up. I am, boss. I am standing.
In all bullshit aside, the way I look at it is they didn't have any business even entertaining the fact that this man trying to own this team when he told you before he even bought the fucking team, he's a Pittsburgh guy. You haven't beat these people in damn near fucking 20 years. Right. Why let him have the reins? I mean, that's just stupid.
Well, wait a minute. Now, let me explain something, because I explained this to my wife. The NFL's procedure of vetting owners is to blame as much as anything here. Because you don't walk into that boys' club just out of nowhere. It isn't because you got a lot of money. It's because, A, you are of a political persuasion. 2, it is because you have some connection to somebody who's already in. It's a lot like country club stuff. Yeah. It's like Caddyshack shit, you know? It's like, you know, Judge Smales. That's what it's like. Jimmy Haslam fit the profile. He's a bigot. He's a Republican. Nod your head because it's true. All right. And he was a minority investor in the Pittsburgh Steelers, which got his foot in the door. And bingo bammo, he ends up the owner of the Cleveland Browns. That's all the vetting that the NFL did. Never mind the rebate scandal. Never mind the racism within the company. Never mind anything else. The NFL was satisfied with the vetting that they did with him because he fit the profile. He's white. He's Republican. And he was already associated with the NFL. That's all. Those are the only requirements. Intelligence has nothing to do with it. That's how all of these people get in. The most dysfunctional owners of all had a way in the door in the first place.
The guy from Tennessee, for example, wasn't that the owner from Tennessee Titans?
Bud Adams?
Which owner was it? Yes, he was saying all of those kind of off-the-wall remarks and everything, and he just swept it all under the rug.
Well, sure, because in the end, that's the vetting process.
But he owned the team all the way back to Houston.
Yeah, I can understand that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but as he got older, you know how it goes when you get older. You shoot your mouth off and you
don't give a fuck anymore. You just stay.
But the vetting is the way the vetting is. That's how we end up with Haslam. The problem with Jimmy Haslam here is that he starts out by making horrible decisions. And this is all born of one thing. And that is the feeling that you, if you're the owner, want to be meddling or involved in the day-to-day business, right? Even though you are just a dumb fuck taking up the ass trucker, basically that's all you are, is a guy who inherited a trucking company and then you proceeded to cheat people out of their money. That's all that you are in life. You never did nothing. You're an inheritance person.
Is that what you said earlier, though? And I'll let you finish, but I'm just intrigued. What you said earlier about the owners being in that, you know, like the Caddyshack shit.
Yes.
Good old boys.
Is it possible that is the reason why maybe Hugh could be in there and the GM is not considered to be one of those guys to where he can't, you know, run the damn thing at least like 1/4 of what Lerner ran it, or, you know what I'm saying, or Trubisky.
Well, I mean, Hugh Jackson has a job because Jimmy Haslam wants to have a job. We can all have our own points of view as far as trying to figure out how a guy who was 1-31 came back for a third year. But that's not where I'm going with this. Where I'm going is if the owner wants to be indispensable in having a day-to-day say, he will intentionally create dysfunction. Now, here's what I want to point out to everybody and how this compares to the Cavaliers. Now the word is that Tyronn Lue had a big problem with the general manager, Kobe Altman. Now, we didn't know this previously, all right? But there was massive dysfunction between Ty Lue and Kobe Altman. Altman is the guy Gilbert wanted, and that's how Ty Lue wound up getting shit canned, all right? And the fact that once this dysfunction existed, who steps in but little short drunken midget fuck who steps in and makes all kinds of decisions, including Kyrie Irving for Isaiah Thomas. Hey, pass me another one, Joe. The guy's a drunkard, and he makes horrible decisions. And he creates an entire organization with dysfunction so he can step in, fire the coach, which he did with Mike Brown twice, and he's just done it again. And he is a little midget fuck, and you know what his job in life is, from what I can see? I know you're going to say Quicken Loans, and I'm going to say, oh, yeah, but no, that's not really what his job is. His job is to fire black men who are head coaches. He can hire a black man who's a head coach and say, see how reasonable I am? And then he just sticks the fucking knife in his back.
Well, you said it before I did, Mr. Moore, and I'm a black man, and I never really looked at it like that, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, it crossed my mind.
Well, I mean, how did you bring back Mike Brown twice? How do you do that and then fire him?
I don't understand that. I don't understand it. And in the case of the Cavs, when LeBron left after 7 years, I mean, come on, guys. He didn't owe Cleveland. He didn't owe the organization. He didn't owe Gilbert shit. He played 7 fucking years. You're giving him people like Antoine Jameson, whose ankles is on bubble gum and tape. And then when they lose, then you want to shit can him. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, Chad is in the chat room saying Kobe Altman's black. He is Dan Gilbert's hand-picked guy.
He's a token.
Is he?
He being a black guy, he's a token black guy in the organization, so they can say, "See, we have a black guy over here." That's what it's about.
It wouldn't matter to me whether he was black or white, Chad. What matters to me is he is handpicked and he's a yes man. And this is the way that Gilbert will set up somebody who's always his yes man. And then he'll surround it with dysfunction, and he'll always have the vote of Kobe Altman. Kobe Altman will always have his back, but meanwhile, Kobe Altman and Ty Lue are ripping each other's throats out, and there you have. But I don't want to get into a Cavs show right now. I want to talk about Browns.
Right.
But it does relate to the same thing. The more dysfunction you have within an organization, the more it allows a meddler like Jimmy Haslam to get involved in this mix. And now, what does he do? Oh, yeah, it gets leaked to the press that, now Todd Haley is going to get fired. The worst decision you could make would be to fire Todd Haley. Not because I protect him. He's a lousy play caller. The offense is horrible. But the players who are playing in the positions are horrible right now. We never filled in our offensive woes. And we knew this going into the season that we were about half a team. However, now the players are quitting. And the reason they're quitting is because the coaches are openly arguing with one another.
That's not good.
There is no collective rowing in the same direction kind of thing. And this is because Jimmy Haslam allows this nonsense to take place. He created this dysfunction the minute that he did not allow his general manager to select his own head coach. The second that happened, the second that he foisted idiot Hugh Jackson onto to John Dorsey, it was all screwed up. And then afterwards, they made it even worse by saying, okay, and Todd Haley. Because
amen to that. Amen.
And look, who knew Todd Haley except Jimmy Haslam? Let's be honest about this, folks. It's where he came from. So,
amen.
All of this is real easy to understand. And the bad news that I have for everybody here is that it will never get better. Because this dysfunction, you can see, people have been waiting for Dan Snyder to clean it up in Washington. And look, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse,
I hate to say it, but when you're right, you're right. And you're right more times than not. And I've been living in denial myself because I've been partial to Jimmy because I struck up a relationship with him the year he bought the team, and I was actually a guest of his on the field for the Browns-Steelers game the first year. But, man, it's just obvious dysfunction. And watching the game today, unless he relinquishes his ownership, I just see this quarterback doing part of the long list of ruined Browns quarterback. He's the best since Bernie. It's so sad. So fucking sad.
They look worse. They look worse than the Keystone Cops or all the fucking clowns jumping out of the Volkswagen Beetle in a circus.
Well, here's the thing that bothers me more than anything is that the defense obviously quit. Okay.
Yeah, in the fourth, that last drive, they just ran the fucking ball. They wouldn't even. They had 3 linebackers in the second line of defense, and they just let them run right past them.
Rational guy says, yeah, luckily Baker Mayfield's a warrior. He'll be fine. No, he won't. You don't understand. They will rip his heart out.
He's going to be broken.
Look at his face. He looks like a deer in headlights.
Hey, turn your mic down, would you, Gemini? Because you're really
I'm sorry.
Distorting. Your sound is distorting.
But look at his face. He doesn't have the confidence anymore.
No, he's drained he's really drained. And I'll tell you what happens next is that Tyrod Taylor will be the quarterback of the Browns. That's how they're going to take his heart away from him.
Oh, you honestly think that?
Yes, I do.
Again?
No,
they're going to do that again?
Yep, I believe they'll come up with some goofy excuse that they're protecting him and he's not ready and this and that, and they're going to strip him of what confidence he has left. Honest to God. And
look what the fuck they did to Deshaun Kaiser last year with the yo-yo in and out of the lineup.
That's right.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct about that.
I know that he creates these situations artificially, and that there are some people who live by pressing hot buttons and they live vicariously through creating grief for others. And Jimmy Haslam must be one of those people, because it would be very simple just to have allowed Dorsey, when you brought him in to do his thing, and the other parts of the organization would be far more professional. That's not what happened. All right. And again, all the comments that are being made, I'm going to go over some of these in the chat room because I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the program, to comment about things. Mr. X Steampunk is saying the Baker is broken. I feel bad for him. Yeah, it is. It's hard to watch. He's not the same quarterback that he was 4 weeks ago, Joe. That is absolutely true. The Atlanta Browns fan says, I think Kobe Altman and Dan Gilbert decided to go ahead and pay Ty for the season and let him leave the team so that Dan Gilbert can play who he wants to play. And that's exactly correct. The argument that, see, he was able to create and foment a bad relationship between Kobe Altman and Ty Lue. And then once the team went 0-6, he goes, now I have my reason to fire him. You see, that is the way little men who have a drinking problem, that's how they conduct business. All right. What's getting worse by the week, Desmond Harrison now is getting worse by the week. The whole offensive line is caving in. The defensive line has quit in 2 of the 3 last games because they recognize that the offense is never going to score. They're never going to score touchdowns. And so they just quit. They give up.
Webb is the only one playing with any sense on defense. He recognizes he was backed off on one play and then he closed it out once Roethlisberger audible, but everybody else was just standing still. And how are you going to let a rookie outplay you on defense?
Well, I mean, the thing that's really scary about it is you run like 4 draw plays in a row and nobody's even trying to run to the running back. I mean, there was no pursuit whatsoever. They just let him run down the field. I mean, there's just no, and we've seen it so many years in the past with the Browns where the defense just gives up. And I'll tell you why. It's because the players are in the middle of a dysfunctional thing and they have checked out mentally. They cannot look, they have to protect their paycheck, folks. You can get mad at the players for arm tackling and not making tackles and not hustling, but they cannot pick a side. The one thing you cannot do is pick sides between Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson. All right. Because one of those guys is going to win, one of them is going to lose, and you pick the wrong one and you're on the bench. Wow. And your value as a player completely depreciates around the league. So you cannot take sides. Instead, you just phase out. That's what you do. You just give up. You just say, I'm going to collect my paycheck. I'm going to try not to get hurt. And you can't blame them because it's been different players in every generation, and they end up doing the same thing under the same dysfunctional ownership. It's the same process over and over again. And it will be the same every year from now on. Well, you can't avoid it.
How the fuck did they not adjust to all those free rushes that the linebackers had at Baker all fucking day long? It's ridiculous. I mean, that's either Hugh or Haley. One of them's got to say, hey, we got to like at least chip and give this kid like more than 1.5 seconds to make a decision.
Yeah, it's
unbelievable. And then it doesn't help that our $75 million receiver is slower than fucking molasses. Unreal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you can see nobody's open down the field, and they know the playbook. The Steelers know Todd Haley's offense, and so everything was covered. There was not an open guy to be had down the field. And then even if you want to support Todd Haley, and God only knows why you would want to, but if you do want to support him, you give the ball to Chubb, he runs the ball up the gut, he's ripping off huge chunk plays, and then you just say, well, let's run him wide. It's just almost like, how could we fail? We can't. And meanwhile, what does Pittsburgh do? They give the ball up the middle to Connor 14 fucking times in a row, and they just go in for a touchdown.
You want to help Todd Haley? You want to really help Todd Haley? Have Mayflower Moving Company on speed dial.
Yeah, and so Rational Guy is saying Baker has no offensive line, no wide receiver to help Jarvis, and Duke can't stay healthy on the field. Well, this is why we said that Duke Johnson could not be an every down back, which some of the Cleveland Browns fans don't understand is that he's held together by paper clips, okay? And he's a third down back. He came into the league. That's what he was, a third down back. He's wanted to be a wide receiver more than a running back, all right? And the reason is because he'd actually play games instead of getting hurt every game he plays. He is an injury liability. By the way, Carlos Hyde, last time I saw, had 6 carries for 11 yards. So go fuck yourselves. If you're still talking about Carlos Hyde, I don't have time for you. I don't have time. The fact of the matter is, even if Chubb is doing well, it makes no difference if we don't call his number or if we call him and tell him to run east and west. It makes no damn bit of sense. So I can't even protect Todd Haley against the inevitabilities that will come. And we can only assume that he's going to take it in the head because Hugh Jackson has so far dodged every bullet. He's like the fucking Matrix guy. He's got something on Jimmy Haslam, and I suspect I know what it is. And I've already spoken about it on the air. I don't want to talk about it anymore, but I'm sure that the only reason that man still has a job is that he knows something that Jimmy Haslam doesn't want out until the deal is done.
I'm blackmailing him. You aren't going to get over me like that.
Do you think the axe will be flying either tonight or tomorrow for either Todd or Hugh?
I'm sorry?
Do you think the axe will be flying either tonight or tomorrow for Todd?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, but the problem is that you axe Todd, and Baker is just going to be crushed even more because he's the one. Baker supports him. Baker didn't want Hugh Jackson even involved with the offense.
Right.
But he talked to Todd a lot more than he talked to Hugh.
Yeah, I mean, so when you make these decisions, yeah, some of the team members are going to be pissed at it either way you look at it. It's just we should never have started the season in a situation like this. And sure enough, here we are, and the wheels have come off.
Hey, Mr. Moorhead, if they axe Todd Haley, like, does that mean Hugh Jackson is most likely going to keep his job till the end of the year?
I mean, you know, Hugh Jackson, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know who would take over. I think that, yeah, we're stuck with him. And the only thing that I can hope is that he becomes Jewish and moves to Pittsburgh. We'll move on next.
Too soon.
No, it's not too soon. I'm Jewish. I'm allowed to.
Oh, Mr. Moorhead, in reference to Jimmy Haslam,
No, he's not Jewish.
Is there time though? Do we have time to do it?
Boy, that one caught me not looking, Brian. Oh, good. Very good.
Hey, Mr. Moorhead, if Jimmy Haslam's an idiot, which we already know he is, no matter what happens, as long as he's meddling at the top, isn't it going to have a ripple effect downhill?
Well, it always does. I mean, the problem is that as long as Hugh's around, the dysfunction remains. I mean, you know, they're all really good about changing the culture, but the culture is Jimmy Haslam. You know, everybody's really good about changing the culture. You know, if you want to get rid of the culture of hate in America, well, the one thing you don't do is accept money from white nationalist groups for your campaigns. All right. You don't empower people who are dangerous people. Likewise, if you want to change a losing culture, make good decisions. Recognize that you're a trucking bandit, all right, and that you're not a decision maker for a football team, and place good people into positions and then delegate. Walk away. I mean, that's the easy way of handling it. If you want to change culture, instead we're talking now. I mean, to me, I'm like dying. I actually had a conversation. It wasn't a conversation. It was a one remark, and I just said, I give up. Just shut up and never talk to me again. And that was the end of my, Jeremy in Akron. The guy's a douchebag, all right? And he does, look, a nice podcast about Cleveland sports. God bless him, but he's a douchebag, all right? They're talking about giving people an armed guards in houses of worship. I mean, how much lower can we sink and suck the NRA's dick? How much further and lower can we go than when we attend religious services to pray to our God that we are all going to be concealed carrying? And his response was, I always say it's whatever makes the congregation more comfortable. And I said, you stupid fuck! If every person in the goddamn church has a goddamn gun and one of them's sick, you're all fucking dead. How does that make you more comfortable?
All right.
I'm more comfortable and safe, but I don't think the guy next to me in church or temple has a gun. I'm more comfortable when the road rage son of a bitch behind me who's beeping at me and going nuts and his face is turning red. I'm more comfortable when there's no concealed carry laws because I know that asshole's got a gun. All of these dangerous assholes have guns. And with the excuse that we get, if we give up our guns, only the bad guys will have guns. The bad guys have guns! Good God, you can't be that fucking stupid. And
any fucking moron has one, Mr. Moo. I mean, you really touched me the way that you were saying what you just said. It makes absolutely not a nickel worth of sense, period.
I don't get it. But you see, again, you want to change the culture of the Cleveland Browns, then change the culture of creating dysfunction. Step away, Jimmy Haslam, and give all of the authority to your general manager and let him construct a proper organization if you want to change the culture. But he doesn't want to change the culture because if he changes the culture, he is depowering himself. And that bigoted egotist, and the same thing with idiot drunken midget guy. You know, if he had competent people, he's expendable, isn't he? And that little man is not going to be expendable in his own mind. You know, it's just too damn bad. When, you know, it's like Donald Sterling. How do you think the Clippers became the absolute laugh? Finally, the NBA had to step in. Guy was fucking nuts.
A 6-year-old kid with the.
Go ahead, Brian first.
Sterling is the only NBA owner who consistently had, at the end of the season, a positive ledger.
Agreed.
The only one out of 32 teams or 30 teams.
And what did he wind up, besides finding himself a young bimbo and to totally insult every person in Southern California? What did he give back to the community? What did he give? What product did he give to the people who were paying his fucking bills that made that positive ledger? What did he do for them?
Jack and shit.
Goddamn thing.
He didn't give him really much into anything at all, but
he became a liability. If he had a positive ledger, he became a liability to the NBA. The fact of the matter is, you could bring in anyone you want. So when Darius Miles was 19 years old and they decided they're going to come in, he wrote a great article. I don't know if you saw Darius Miles, you know, where is Darius Miles today? And it was this great thing that he wrote. And he was telling stories about how Donald Sterling used to hang out in the locker room ogling at the naked men in the locker room.
Oh my goodness.
It's fucking a fucked up environment. The whole thing was fucked up from the get-go. It didn't matter. And finally it ended up like Sacramento, which is another dysfunctional situation.
And he was a goddamn good talent as well, though, Darius Miles. He just went to the wrong team at the wrong time.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Darius. I mean, I thought very good.
Elgin Baylor.
Yeah, Darius Miles, to me, I mean, I when he was with Cleveland, I was just like, oh God, this guy's horrible. After reading the article, I like him a lot more because what he said was, he goes, man, I could dunk on anyone. He goes, that was one thing, man, I could dunk on anyone. He goes, but I couldn't throw a rock in the ocean. That's in the article. Man could not shoot, and he never learned how to shoot.
Can you put the link to that article in the chat, Mr. Moo? Because I would love to read that.
You know, it's a magnificent writing, and it's a really colorful story of how a 19-year-old from nowhere, him and Quentin Richardson, how they end up in La La Land, okay, out in California, and they go from being nobodies to being invited to the best parties. You know, where is Darius Miles today? I'm going to see if I can link this article because
I can catch it in the replay because I would like to read that.
Here we go.
I had no idea.
I'm putting this link right now into the YouTube chat. Okay, let me do that, please. And okay, this should work. This is part of the Players Tribune. And this is an absolute must read if you just want to get an idea from a different perspective. So that link is for anybody who wants to read about Darius Miles and his experience with Sterling. If you don't believe me, believe him. But the fact is, if you want to change cultures, when the man at the top is twisted or drunk, or is a crazy lunatic bigot or a thief or whatever the case may be, the culture changes when that person steps away and allows competent people to run the organization. And the Browns players have clearly given up, and it's because they can't cut through the culture that Jimmy Haslam has created. And it's just that, you know, you can take sides on the Hugh and Todd thing. I'll guarantee you that both of them will be gone by the end of the year. But who ends up getting hired? I mean, Dorsey isn't going to be allowed to bring in his own people. Dorsey will leave of his own volition, knowing that Jimmy is going to keep bringing in dysfunctional people.
Then you're just at square one all over again.
And that's what happens. And this is why the Browns never gain traction. That's why these types of organizations that are dysfunctional never gain traction and never move forward. I wish I could tell you the news is better, but it is not, because that presence is continually there and always will be, because we can't force the owner out. We thought we were happy when Lerner left, so we replaced an autistic guy, basically, who didn't want the team in the first place, who hid from people, and we replaced him with a thief who is obviously a meddler and somebody who is, and the fact that he's as invisible as he is, he's not invisible within the organization, just to fans, because he has no accountability, because no thieves do have accountability. They have excuses, but not accountability.
So it's crystal clear that we can say without a shadow of a doubt that he is one of the lowest of the low of narcissists on this planet.
Haslam, Haslam got what he wanted. He's an NFL owner. He is now a fully vested member of the club. You have to understand how this plays. This is the rich white man's club. And look, I can tell you, in my industry, in the radio industry, I was not part of any fucking club. I'm blue collar, man. I worked my market. I was out on the street knocking on doors with my salespeople. But I can tell you that people like Lowry Mays and his bastard son, who were the people in Clear Channel who I sold to, they're a bunch of fucking dorks. They don't know dick about radio. If you gave them 5 stations in a market and gave me 5 stations in a market, I would run them out of town on a rail. They did not know shit. But they had so much fucking money that they'd inherited that there was just, and plus they had the government people in their pocket. They had the broadcast commission, the FCC, and everybody in their hip pocket. They got everything so that it consolidated so they could buy everything. They put people like me out of business. That's how they made their money. They're thieves. They're corrupt people. And I can't say it any clearer that, if you want to change cultures in an industry, you don't let people buy legislation. Yeah. You allow there to be, if you're going to pretend that we're really capitalists, and this is what bothers me about the socialism cries, we are not a capitalistic country. Please stop with that, folks. Please stop. I am a real entrepreneur. I am a real capitalist. All right? Real, honest to God capitalist. And I was forced out of business at 43 years of fucking age, because of the consolidation of radio stations that was allowed by this government. And the fact is that people paid their legislators to get the law to change. And I can tell you even how it changed. When I got into the business, you were not allowed to own radio stations and television stations or newspapers. You were not even allowed to own more than one FM radio station in a marketplace.
They called that piracy, Mr. Moohead. I remember those days.
You're not
as far back as you, but
they had
a pirate radio station.
Monopolies. All right. They wanted to prevent monopolies. That was the original law and the intent of the Federal Communications Commission. Then they created legislation, and I hate to bore people, but I just want to be truthful, called 8090 frequencies. And what they were 3,000 watt FM signals that were sandwiched in between more powerful stations, so that they were allegedly designed to be in areas that were underrepresented. In other words, big cities had radio stations, but little towns didn't. And the little in-between towns would have their own radio stations. And that was all in the name of diversity. All right. But something that I knew long before is that they would end up in the hands of the few and the rich and the powerful. All of those 80-90 stations, what they did is they had double minorities, and I will use Black women, Native American women as classic examples that were fronts for the big companies. And they put their applications in for these jammed in little frequencies, and they won because in the name of diversity, we're giving it to a Native American woman. All right?
Affirmative action.
Yep. The Native... But it wasn't. It was really the people like Clear Channel who were funding that person. And you know what the people did? The Native American woman turned around and sold to Clear Channel. That's right, because the next step was, you're allowed to own a second FM station. And then they picked up that 80-90 frequency. Then the third law change came into a place. It's like, you can change the city of license now of that FM into the bigger cities after all. And then they said, and you can own billboards as well as radio stations. And then they said you can own newspapers and billboards and radio stations and television stations. And you know something? It happened in the Republican administrations and the Democratic administrations. It was totally party blind. This country, it's just crazy. I mean, that's how I'm out of the business. And
that's why we have 7 companies that run all of the fucking media.
That's right. Wow. And that's what the plan was from the get-go. And I saw it happen, and I saw it unfold in front of me. If you want to change the culture, you got to change the dishonest people at the top of the scheme.
And the same thing is happening in the tech industry now.
Oh wait, whose sound is on?
Blowing in the wind.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's Gemini, I think.
Well, I'm sorry, fellas. I have my phone in my pocket. And it must have knocked off.
I'm not even going to touch
on mute. I had my cell phone mute.
That would be too damn stereotypical. No,
I'm sorry. I have my phone in my pocket. But Mr. Moot, everything you guys are saying, that's exactly what's happening today. It's just in a different form.
No, I gotta turn this off. I can't. Yeah.
You gotta mute Gemini. We can't hear you.
Yeah, enough.
We're in the middle of the movie Twister. What the hell?
No, I know. But...
Hey, Lou, did you ever have a chance to ask Gemini whether, because it sounds like he's actually on his phone. Remember, because I was curious about whether we can connect, because I can't do it with my Android. And I'm flying home to Cleveland next week to watch the Chiefs game. I'm not excited about it now with how things have turned out, but it would be great to be able to at least chime in if I could do it mobilely. But I can't seem to do it on my phone. But Gemini, are you on your phone? Are you able to get in through your phone? Or you got?
He muted his thing. I think he's trying to figure it out. What I noticed just in the brief amount of time is that it seemed like the power of his signal went way up when he put the phone in his pants.
Yes, I am on my mobile. This is the way I always.
What kind of phone is it? What kind of phone is it, Gemini?
It's an LG. I'm not an Apple picker, but I'm out here in Ohio. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. So I guess by the Browns losing, the wind is just cutting up, but I can't smoke in the house. You guys understand? I have to get out on the patio.
Well, Michael actually can smoke in the house, but that's another issue.
Yeah, but I can get into the hangouts. I don't know. I don't know how any of the other guys, you guys are, or anyone else but when I got introduced to Mr. Moohead, it was through my cell phone and through this same LG phone that I had. So, but I'm outside. I need to mute myself because I don't want to disrupt this broadcast.
I appreciate it, Gemini. You're a great guy, and we love having you on the show. But I do have an idea for Michael. I bet you that if it's the same old LG phone he's been using, it might be the operating system of Android that has changed, and that is what's not marrying up with the YouTube Live. That would be my guess, is that one of these upgrades eventually just schnockered the whole thing.
Because Steven has the same issue, right? I think he's got a Samsung.
I won't let me log on my phone. No, I don't know why.
If you're Android 8, Android 9, I have a feeling that once you stepped up to Android 8, that a problem developed. That would be my guess. Because what's happening is when these guys try to call in on their cell phones, I see after the show on my cell phone that somebody's trying to get on, but they can't come through into the studio. They're only calling. I'm only seeing that there's a Hangout call that's being directed to my phone, which is also an Android phone, but I'm broadcasting from a YouTube platform. So I kind of figured that might be what the issue is.
Yeah, it was really bizarre because one of the first times I had called in, maybe the second time I had tried to get in, and then somehow Bronk called in, and him and I were both on a call together, but it was just audio. But obviously we weren't on the show. So I don't know. I'm thinking about getting an iPhone and seeing if that works.
Yeah. Now, what I want to do is go into the chat room because people are making comments. Hubbard at right tackle stinks. Mark Jones says they are blowing by him with ease. Yep. Why do I see Haley fired and Hugh's friend named OC, Jeff and Bama? Because you've been watching my show for a long time.
Brush up on your Mandarin there, Michael.
I rub off on people in all the wrong ways.
I didn't hear you.
Brush up on your Mandarin.
Yeah, is Mayflower Moving still in business? It sure is, Pilgrim. No, I don't know. I mean, Mayflower Moving and North American Van Lines and, Atlas Van Lines, who in the hell knows? I mean, this is, all the old companies that we knew and loved. So much has merged now and consolidated down. It's crazy. Harrison is not a professional lineman.
Going back to the big monopoly thing, the worst one is the banks.
Oh, God. Yeah.
That's the absolute worst one for no competition,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the way and that is a sign of a fascist government, by the way, not a capitalistic system. You think because there's a stock market, look, the Chinese play the stock market as intensely as we do, and that is not a democracy, and that is not a capitalistic country. So don't tell me that one side is into socialism. We are all living in a fascist country where legislation is bought and paid for by people who are influence peddlers within companies. Let's just be honest about it. This is a fascist country. So, and that's not saying anything about Trump.
I'm fighting to try and get back to.
It was like that before Trump was here. It was like that before Trump was here.
That's right. Exactly. This is not a reference to him. I mean, because you hear people comparing him to Hitler and all this. And look, Hitler was a fascist, but he was a lot of other things too. He was a purveyor of great Jewish deli food. And I like the dishes that we prepare in the ovens. Yeah.
But do not ask me to paint your house.
So Hugh will be axed tomorrow, Anthony Nasca says.
4 different colors on one wall.
The Browns aren't together enough to fire someone after the game. You're probably right on that. Rational guy, odds on Hugh making it through Monday. Oh, that he said with being fired. I thought you meant, health-wise. God damn it. I was hoping that maybe, there's always the black cow of death. There is the BCOD. We could, amongst
but the BCOD always hits the relatives. It never hits him.
Look,
took out the brother, took out the mother, missed Hugh.
Yeah, twice. I know. It's true. The black cow of death.
4 bullets left in the chamber.
He has an endless number of bullets, but I think as Jim Kirk would have said, Captain James T. Kirk said this very thing, I believe, to Khan. But you keep missing the target. Okay, that is the black cow of death. He will just empty the chambers, and you'll be really upset, at Sarah Silverman. We'll give her as an example. You'll be pissed off, and another female comedian will die, and I'll look at him and go, "No, that's not what we said."
She is one of God's chosen people.
Yeah, and he shrugs. He shrugs, and he says, What the hell?
Mr. Moonhead, when we talked about how Jimmy Haslam was at the top and how it has a ripple effect on the bottom, you know when you do your job and you have a bad relationship with your manager and he ends up resigning, you're like, that was a good one. But then somebody else comes in and he's even worse, and you're like, oh shit, what happened to the old manager? I should have brought him back.
I'm pretty sure that was a Who song.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say. Pete Townsend. I was going to mention.
I just think that's what's going to happen with Hugh Jackson. If he gets fired and he's going to hire one of his cronies, and then he comes in there, everyone's going to be like, oh, shit, not again.
Well, Dorsey is going to have to hire the head coach. The question is what is Haslam going to do? And the only thing I can think of is if Dorsey hires an effective head coach, he'll bounce the guy's checks. That's the only thing that I can imagine that he will do to somehow create dissension within the organization. There's plenty of comments being made in the chat room. The odds on Hugh making it through Monday. He'll make it. Haley won't. Haley's very emotional, by the way, and it's something that I'm not sure is great in the long run anyway. But I figure the emotional guy will go first. The one thing about Hugh is he's experienced to these things, and he'll keep his asshole tighter than Haley. So I figure Haley would go first. Joe Fox says, it would be best if Baker was on the bench. There is no reason to break him more. There is the Tyrod Taylor thing. As soon I told you, it would be a matter of time now that the fans are suggesting Tyrod Taylor. It's like, I told you. I'm like a soothsayer, man. I see the future. I know everything is going to happen before it happens. But unfortunately, like the Black Cow of Death, I can't really do much about it except end up killing the wrong people. Thomas Estep says, if Baker has a line and a true number one receiver, let him run his own plays and shotgun. I'm sure he makes better adjustments than what's been done so far. And that's what you're going to have going into next year and why you want to continue playing Baker Mayfield so that he is given more responsibility as the year goes on. But with Haley, the problem is that Haley is an egotistical guy and a very emotional guy. He's not going to give that rookie quarterback now, we'll
be honest. Wouldn't yours actually be the black dreidel of death?
The black dreidel of death. Little Pat Sajak. Let's give it a spin. God almighty. Anthony Naska says Todd Haley will be the new head coach and give it a chance. Who is gone? Give Haley the rest of the season. When he fails, bring in Dorsey's guy or gal. No, it was actually Eric Mangini's gal. I think that's who Eric was doing in the office. And Belichick was too. Belichick was too.
Speaking of bringing people in the halftime comments, I said, I think Hope Solo is looking for a kicking job.
Oh, the kicker. I mean, here's another one. I wonder, let me do what I.
He was the neurotic goalie for the USA women's soccer team.
All right, fans. Okay, fans. Wait a minute. Got to clean it. What are you looking at, folks? I mean, one guy comes on and he goes, the reason that Joseph missed the extra point was the pressure was coming from the right. I said he kicked it sideways. I mean, do you know that there were 3 people in the far eastern seats that ran out to check their car to make sure that the windshield wasn't busted from that kick? Jesus Christ! I mean,
he missed the net and spilled some guy's beer.
I mean, stadium birds were like, "Holy shit! Run for it!" I mean, how can you line up? I mean, so he pushed the last one right. And then the very next one, I mean, that thing was just like sideways. I mean, it was like
overcompensation.
That would have been wide from 5 yards out.
He kicked it and it hit Hugh Jackson in the head.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to figure out what he was aiming for. I mean, it's like, could you imagine if Joseph was a porn star? And it was like, we're going to have to shoot the cum scene over again, Mr. Joseph, because you missed her again. To the right, to the left. Come on. Aim for the center, would you? Yeah. I mean, how do you do
in Cleveland, we probably try to get Hope Solo. We end up getting Han Solo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look.
Well, Harrison Ford could probably kick better than Greg Joseph. You just have to kill him after the 6th episode.
The goddamn Rockettes could kick better than Joseph. I mean, but here we go. 69% field goal kicker. Whose idea was this? He was a 69% field goal kicker in college. I told you that when they took him on. He can't kick straight. It's like, I see him going through this. What difference does this make? You missed your face again.
Maybe he was Catholic, just give it a sign. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it should be like this. Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's exactly right. It's like,
turn it left.
It's like, wait a minute. He's bringing a rosary out on the field. I mean,
Hey, Mr. Mued, how many wins would Hugh Jackson get in Canadian Football League if the Browns went over there for a season? Do you think?
I have no idea. That's one I don't have an answer to.
What, 3 wins in America equals what? 1 win in Canada?
I don't know. You know, it's like
I think he'd be like a -2 right now in 31.
The problem is Hugh wouldn't know how to count beyond 50. It's the what yard line?
Well, hell, he'd never get past Lake Erie. He'd try to walk through it or across it.
We're making a better one. I think the Cleveland Gladiators can give the Browns a run for their money.
Oh God! Well, the Browns wouldn't be able to fill the indoor stadium. I mean, that's yeah. Like, I can see Jabril Peppers waiting for the ball to carry him off the side. You know, it's like I don't know.
And then he still fair catch the goddamn thing.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, they quit. The whole thing is just messed up. And I'm gonna go back to comments in the chat room because, God,
receivers trying to run. You know how the receivers can run. And before ball, just imagine seeing the Browns receivers trying to do that.
I'm trying to imagine receivers at this point. Baker should have not been playing in the pouring rain, down 459-12 or whatever it was, you know. And again, I don't know what the he's not going to quit, but he is certainly going to realize, you know. And I love the graphic that I saw that was put up on one of the broadcasts. It was like the worst completion percentages of the league, and there were the 4 rookie quarterbacks. And it's like, well, yeah, when you're drafted high, the worst teams get you. So it makes sense that the Buffaloes and the Jets and and the Browns and, all of these teams, their quarterbacks are having trouble completing passes. They're not good. And but then they showed a graphic of Aikman and all the other quarterbacks in their rookie years, and they were comparably at 56% completion. Baker's at about 57.8 and less after today. And, this is a typical rookie season when you play for a lousy football team. Kind of look at it that way, and maybe it's not as bad. Thomas Estep says we are a farm team. Look at all the number ones we've had over the years. All you hear every year, that we are still young. Yeah, well, that's because we turn over and
Believe it or not, Baker's actually today he actually completed over 60% of his passes.
All right, well,
if you factor in all those drops, I mean, leading the league in drop passes, especially didn't get any playing time until 2.5
he threw the fucking touchdown to Seth the Val, by the way.
Yeah, thank God for that last drive. That probably helped his percentage dramatically.
Then there's kindred spirit. I'll tell you something. It's like, could we have the actual body on the field instead of the spirit? I mean, kindred spirit is like he's
not a poltergeist. He's just a phantasm.
Yeah. It's like, Greg, didn't you put him in I swear I put him in the game. I don't know where he is.
Follow the ectoplasm.
The guy's terrible. The guy's awful.
Look at him like, what the fuck, dude? When he gave up that touchdown, he was just like, dude, are you fucking serious?
Yeah, and Denzel Ward is like, there's supposed to be somebody behind me.
He threw his arms up at Kindred, like, dude, are you serious? You just let him go?
Yeah, and he whiffed on another play, and he was whiffing all over the field. He was terrible.
Up. I fucking hate that when players do that. They come in hard just with their shoulder, and Connor spun right out of it and took off for about 30.
Rational Guy says, I think the cancerous tumor, which was the 2016-2017 seasons, just hangs over Hugh's head and will forever. It's simply infectious until he is gone. And I think that's, that is that. Toby Casson is saying Greg Williams' defenses give up a shitload of yards. We need to get turnovers just to have a chance. But we get the turnovers, and then we turn them over to what? That is the thing. I mean, and that's what breaks the spirit of the defense so much, is that we give the ball to the offense, and the offense is impotent. It can't do anything.
Even up to like a week ago, why like the broadcasters will talk about how good this O-line is. It's fucking horrendous. They can't run block for shit. I mean, Chubb had some nice runs because he found some creases, but they definitely can't pass block. I just don't get why they get so much hype, because they're terrible.
And Asa Whitaker is saying, how's that for ironic, leading the league in takeaways and drop balls simultaneously? I mean, it is, And you know what's incredible? So we're 21 takeaways, and we're still losing like crazy. And everyone said, God, if we would just get more turnovers, we'd win more games last year. It's like, not really. Not really. No, not at all. It's Rosanna Dana. It's always something, you know?
Do we have more interceptions than touchdown receptions?
That's a possibility. That would be an interesting statistic to look up.
I'd like to check
Oh
that.
my God, I thought I was going to die.
Yeah, Wable Brown is saying, who is the problem on the offensive line? And it's like, well, today Desmond Harrison was a major problem. Hubbard has been a problem. The 2 tackles have been a real problem. And then you've got Treader, who's playing on 1 foot. I mean, I don't know how you expect a center to drive block in short yardage situations when he's got a severely sprained ankle and is having trouble walking. You know, these are things we don't have depth on the offensive line. And the coaches, obviously, Austin Corbett, they have absolutely no faith in him. So, yeah, that's the problem is the tackles.
And the answer to a lot of our problems was sent back into New England about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's what we were led to believe. And I wouldn't say that Treader's a problem, Wable. I say he's injured. I'd say Harrison and Hubbard, the 2 H's, the H&H boys. I mean, those guys are just not doing their job. I mean, Hubbard is a guy who gets pushed backwards. I swear to God, if he got a job at the local Kroger pushing the goddamn shopping carts, you know, you see the guy with the long line of shopping carts, the carts would push him backwards. I mean, I don't think that Hubbard
he gets shoved right out into the middle of traffic.
Yeah, I don't think he's a good right tackle, and I think that Harrison is, you know, holding. And they asked something interesting on the telecast. They said, "Why is he receiving no help on an island outside?" And it's like, on the play that they asked that question, the reason Chubb was in the game and Chubb just flooded out into the pattern and there was no running back to even chip block and help him out. And that is offensive scheme. Harrison got beat by a guy who is faster than he on a blitz. The defensive back, whoever number 48 is for the Steelers, beat him. And there was no running back to chip block him. And because the running back was sent out in the pattern. And when you have no running backs blocking for a quarterback with a rookie left tackle, a blindside at that of Baker Mayfield, then that's what's going to happen. You're going to wind up with holding calls, because had he not held in the end zone, he would have been sacked anyway. He would have been sacked there too. So, you know, it's the offensive scheme isn't what it should be. Thomas Estep says, I agree. Williams would be a good head coach. Boy, that's a real leap of faith. I mean, he's not even mentally stable. What Browns need instead of Hugh, at least to the end of the year, and let Dorsey. At this point, I just want to get these 2 arguing men out of the equation any way possible. And Hugh goes first, you know.
Throw Amos into the equation, too.
Yeah,
at least 3 more special teams penalties today.
Well,
I counted 3.
Hugh's on first. I don't know who's on second.
The little drunk midget's on third.
Yeah, God, Amos. God.
Amos.
Yeah, we cannot get open and cannot hold on to the ball when it does come. Yeah, that is a problem. Alistair Erskine saying we have no identity on offense. And that's because in the era of the internet, identity theft is a big thing. I guess our identity has been stolen. Maybe Jimmy Haslam stole our identity. Yeah, Haslam stole it.
Who would steal it? They don't want that, do they?
Hey, Mr. Mouhet, can you only imagine the stress the players are under having to see Hugh Jackson and Haley just going back and forth?
That's it. I mean, it's an energy drainer to be sure. And, you know, then feeling like you have to stand up for one or the other. And both of them are it's a bad mixture of people. The 2 men are really polar opposites, and it's not a good situation at all.
I'm just giving an example. Like when I used to work at a grocery store, one manager would tell me, hey, can you help us go push baskets outside? You know, there's a lot of baskets out there. And then, you know, another manager will come, well, I can't have you do that. I need you to do this first. And you're literally like, well, which one do I listen to? You know, because they're both management, you know?
Yep. Money Never Sleeps saying Moo and panel. bench Baker till new staff is installed? And the answer here is that, you're going to end up with the new offense anyway, but I still want to see Baker Mayfield have an opportunity to run an offense. And if you get rid of the offensive coordinator, maybe you can if he understands the playbook, maybe he can make more audible calls.
Well, and at this point, you never know what the hell you're going to get out of Tyrod Taylor if you put him back in there anyway.
Plus, your best receiver can't separate. $75 million for a guy who can't separate. The fast guy, he's so unreliable. It's like the kid is handcuffed.
Yeah, but he was never meant to be the primary receiver.
Right.
He was always supposed to be number two.
Moved outside.
So, until Willis comes back, you don't have somebody at least that size to be on the outside.
And here's a good point by Asa Whitaker. He says, okay, we have better tight end depth than we do wide receiver. So why in the fuck don't we see any creativity like we did with Chudzinski with 3 tight end type scheme? It's because Chudzinski was a tight end. All right, next.
Njoku got what? 1 catch or 1 target today?
That's it. He was interfered with in the end zone. I know that. Yeah, Amsterdam's asking me, Moo, are you a pony person? Yeah, and you can ride my baloney pony. All right.
If y'all guys didn't hire Chucky, I could just imagine Brown's friends bringing Chucky in a brown suit to the game. What a nightmare that would be.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's Shane Johnson jumping in. If you want a real coach, give Bill Cowher a call.
I saw that.
If that name comes up one more time, I'm going to go postal. Shane, I know you're trying to really be helpful here, but you're not. Shut the fuck up. I mean, Bill Cowher's not coming to Cleveland. I mean, and everyone wanted Gruden in Oakland. It's like games changed, man. The game's changed, Why the fuck can't we find a decent kicker? All right.
We did a couple times. Cockcroft.
Well, there are some bad kickers in the NFL right now, to be sure, and we've had 2 of them, as it just so happens. We could get Zane Gonzalez back. He should be healed by now, because this guy's worse than Zane Gonzalez. I'm sorry, because he doesn't have a pulled muscle, a torn muscle in his leg. This is the way this guy usually kicks. As amazing as that sounds.
Yeah, his nickname should be Buckshot.
Now Shane Johnson says the only way we save the Browns is if Hugh dies. Boy, now there's a person who's a real straight shooter.
Can I recommend Trebuchet?
Yeah, I mean,
there's good ones that die.
I'm just trying to fling him all the way to Toronto.
Wasn't that a Billy Joel song? Only the duds die young.
They say only the good ones die, so he will find a way. Like a tornado will hit your neighborhood, and he will be the only one that'll survive. I'm alive, guys.
Yeah. Oh, Alistair Erskine is saying, Mr. Moo, who do you like from Kansas City staff to be the coach? And but again, we'll get that up close and personal here. We'll see who Dorsey's talking to after we get crushed. Okay. I'll have a better idea for you after that. Thanks, Gemini. Gemini's phone died on him. That was part of the reason of the problem.
Yeah, I was
so be on that side of the field.
One at a time, fellas.
Go ahead.
I was so looking forward to that fucking game that we're going to next week. We got 7 of us going. We got great seats at the lower level, but it's like, why? The team's already folded.
Oh shit.
The only reason that Hugh is the head coach is that he's great at PR and he's a con man. Well, it takes one to know one. I mean, Haslam, easiest people to con.
Pick them.
Easiest people to con are con men. That's exactly right. It's going to be interesting to see. Hugh would be the only survivor if the plane crashed. That's the.
We don't try to take.
Mr. Moohead, just imagine that. Just imagine that you try to blow up the stadium with Hugh in it, and you're like, and all of a sudden Hugh comes out of the rubble. I made it. I can coach one day. And Jimmy goes, "Got him in, buddy boy."
No, you know what would happen? The plane would crash. Hugh would emerge as the only person alive, and he'd say, "I wasn't driving the plane." That would be. You throw the dead pilot Under the bus. There you go. I just want to tell his family that he was the one. He was the one who was driving the plane. Not me. Not me. He was flying it. Not me. I had nothing to do with this.
Wouldn't that be a baggage carrier or not a bus?
God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. Asa Whitaker says, why is Perriman running short patterns? And it's because the quarterback has no time to get the ball downfield. And Perriman, it wouldn't make any difference. Did you see a good example was the God, I'm trying to forget all of their names right now. The Damian Ratley on the interception by Hayden.
Yeah.
He didn't even fight for that ball. I mean, you got to break up that play. Even Baker had to. Baker,
he was in a better position than Ratley was.
Yeah, well, Baker had a really pissed off look on his face like that. You got to become the defensive back on a play like that. You can't let him just intercept the ball, and that's what Ratley did. All right, so, but no, Perriman, Perriman has got no ability to run patterns whatsoever. It made no sense getting him as a wide receiver. He can't run a pattern.
I only saw him once. I think he just runs a short pattern so he'll appear on TV so let his parents know he's still there.
Oh, Rational Guy says, I sold my Kansas City tickets for next week. I'll be out of town.
He said he got 47 cents for both to a 2-for-1 deal.
We got change back from his dollar? Fantastic.
Well, he said he may get some menthol cigarettes to go with it, too.
No, I think what he wanted to say was that he sold them for a 50-cent CD. I think that's what he was trying to say. Mr. X Steampunk
is in the mail.
Yeah, I am just so culturally diverse. I can't stop myself. Let's see here. R. Jones, hey Moo, do you like black men? Now wait a minute.
Well, that's a loaded question. My goodness.
Yeah, if so, Hugh has 3.5 inches for you. Boy, I'll tell you. I wish it were a match. I think the reason he still has his job has something to do with race. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's because of Haslam's trouble. Yeah, that's Haslam's business problem. But, honestly, I would love to have a good coach. And I don't give a damn what he looks like, man. I just want to have a good coach, somebody who's got some sense about him. But I'll tell you, honestly, you know who Hugh reminds me of? He reminds me kind of if the Reverend Al Sharpton shaved his head.
Oh, shit.
I mean, it's just a stream of bullshit that you can't believe coming out of somebody's mouth. That's Hugh Jackson, and I just don't like that. I don't like people who are disingenuous. Whole thing went to shit when they let Gordon walk. Well, I think the whole thing went to shit when you let Gordon walk and you did nothing to bolster your receiving core via free agency. I think that has something to do with it. Somebody bought my Cavs tickets the other day for $8 a seat. Faces 115. Chad, buy high, sell low, baby.
I had a friend on Facebook giving away 2 tickets, 2 games in a row for the Cavs. It's unbelievable. Giving them away. He's like first person that responds. If I was in Cleveland, I would have taken them just to go, but giving them away, it's crazy how shitty they are.
The beauty of it is that usually if you bought at 115 and you got 8, you'd be sad. Why are you smiling, Chad? You didn't have to watch that shit. That's the beauty of it. Wow.
Oh, hey, Mr. Moohead, do you think when will the Cavs win their first game? They play the Hawks on Tuesday at home, then the Nuggets on Thursday. Do they win either one of those games?
No.
Not this year. Their first win will come in January when they start dumping players.
Oh, and here you go. You know something's going to happen now. Big Lurker UK says Hugh Jackson on Todd Haley. This is from the press conference. There's nothing wrong with my relationship with Todd Haley. Well, that's technically true. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It sucked for the beginning, and it still sucks. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way God wanted it to be. Yeah, Jackson Presser said what I said last week, but I've never said I wanted to take over play calling. I said I wanted to help. That's it. So today, now all of a sudden, it's just a big old thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackson's head is a big old thing.
Well, obviously, one guy doesn't feel whatever's in his trousers is, but whatever.
I just can't believe Hugh made it to 40 games with only 3 wins and not fired. In any other situation, he'd be terminated right now. In any other team.
Yeah, it's just. Chad says, I couldn't make the game, season tickets. Oh, man, you can't sell out of that. You couldn't make the game. The team couldn't make the game. Nobody's going to make the game. I mean, you know. Do you remember the PGA Tour? They had the slogan a couple of years ago. These guys are really good. Oh, you know, I don't even know what the Cavaliers slogan means. What is it? Be the ball? What I mean, I don't know. What,
be the fight.
Be the fight.
Be the ball, Danny. Be the ball.
Yeah. I don't understand. No. Yeah.
Things that would help the shooting.
Thank you very little. You know, I'm sitting here looking at that slogan, and I'm saying that shouldn't be the slogan at all.
Nope.
I mean,
if it was Gilbert, it'd probably be saying it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, you know, you know,
Bottoms up.
No, there should be a sign, a road sign saying Los Angeles, 2,428 miles this way, because that's where your franchise went. It went right out there. Who wins more games, Steven wants to know. The Browns or the Cavs? The Cavs will win more games.
Well, yeah, I mean,
do you still think
they'll have more ties?
Do you think they'll still get to 16 wins?
I at this point, this is they're going to go, you know,
59 game losing streak, baby.
I'm thinking Robert Downey Jr. They're going to go full bore retard, you know. You can't go full out retard, you know. Not like Cuba Gooding Jr. did anyway. Radio. I mean, that's not what they're really like. Come on, Cuba. Dig deeper into your method acting.
Mr. Moohead, you said Tyronn Lue got fired already, right? After 6 games?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, fired this morning.
And what, even in that midget's mind, in his ego, does he think this next guy coming in is going to change that culture? Because I don't see.
But that's that was the last thing I wanted to say before I get off the air. Is that they went to their assistant coach, the guy who did the interim job last year, Larry Drew, and
he was 9-1, I think.
Yeah, and they said, he was 9-1, and they said to him, could you be the voice, you know, and step in during this time? They didn't even have an answer from him, and they fired Lou anyway. That's what drunken midgets do. They're belligerent fuckers. Unbelievable.
They talked to Lou, I think, 2 or 3 hours after they fired Lou. So, I don't know.
They fired who?
After they fired Lou, they talked to Drew like 2 or 3 hours after they got rid of Lou. Drew, I don't even think was aware of it.
Lou, whatever.
You, Drew, Lou.
It's all the same, man.
Yeah, whoop-de-doo.
Now, somebody's saying that Baker's up speaking. He looks broken. Well, he would be. He got tossed around. The Cavs should build around Nance Jr. You're trying to be a stand-up comedian, right, Ron? You're going to build around, in today's NBA, an undersized big man who has no three-point shot. Okay. I'll tell you what, I won't wake you up because you're having a very nice dream, and I hate to do that to people.
And who should they build around? Who should the Cavs build around?
They don't have anybody. This is what
I rule out Cedric because I don't think they can spell his name.
I mean, believe me, the young bull is the slow young bull. He's just getting run around by people. He's, no, this is not somebody you build around. I mean, we're way worse off than we were the first time LeBron left, because by the time we rebuilt, we got Kyrie, and we have nobody like that. Nobody like that at all. JR is never going to make a jump shot again. JR is a sack of shit. Ace is saying, I'm praying they could win 10 games. Well, 9-73 is the mark. That's the 76ers mark.
Yep.
It's definitely
January 1st.
9 still sounds so far away at this point. So far.
Now, Ace is saying there is a certain player in Detroit who was just like Nance. Who would that be? You're going to say that Blake Griffin? You're going to compare Blake Griffin and his huge body build to the late growth 6'9" guy who was 6'2" in his senior year in high school, who's injury prone, to Blake Griffin. Okay. All right. Hugh says he needs to watch the tape. Yeah.
Not unless he meant Tayshaun Prince.
Oh, God.
I hope it's duct tape and it's over his mouth.
This is all fucked up. Guys, I think I've done everything that I can do. I've said everything I can say. Tomorrow, I got to do a show, and I got to figure out how I'm going to top all of this.
We might get more news out of Cleveland between now and tomorrow night. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping somebody gets fired, so that gives me more impetus. But of course, everything with the Cavaliers is going to give me impetus anyway. I will. I really think that I want to have.
They have a pill for that.
Yeah, you can get rid of that impetus now.
Hey, Mr. Muhead, we should have a segment in your show every week. When will the Cavs win their first game? And we'll discuss the next couple games.
Well, it doesn't matter who they play. I mean, my God, you saw the Hawks destroy them. I mean, anybody with any credentials whatsoever, this team is just a disaster. And I'll tell you something else. That defensive coordinator has to go for the Cavaliers. Nobody has been able to figure out that guy's defense. LeBron James couldn't figure out the guy's defense. What I think is it's like demented John Madden. It's like, could you imagine John Madden with Alzheimer's disease working the telestrator?
Yeah, you put the ball in Brett Favre, and then Brett Favre does this, and Brett.
No, it would be like, and then we put an X right here, and it's like, there's no
and then
X.
Boom!
No X. There's no X on the screen. Well, we'll put it over here. No, it's like, no, you have to put your pen actually on the telestrator and make a mark. You can't do that mentally, John. It's like, well, I used to do it before that way. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, this guy's defensive scheme is unintelligible. I mean, it's like Sanskrit. Nobody can fucking read this and know what it means. And and we have rookies. It's like the Colin Sexton, It's
and now you know why Pat Summerall was an alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be drinking too. I mean, can you imagine 19-year-old Colin Sexton? Could you imagine this? They put this gibberish in front of him of a defensive scheme, and they say to him, "What do you make of this?" And he looks back at him and said, "I only have 1 year of college, and it was in Alabama. What do you expect from me?" God damn. All right, everybody.
I can barely spell Tuscaloosa.
God. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of the Postgame Show. We give you your money's worth because the Browns don't. We'll be back again on Moohead Radio tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't you dare miss it. Panel, thanks a lot for joining me as always. I love you guys. You know that.
Fellas, take it easy.
Love you all, you guys, too.
All right. Be good.
Tune in tomorrow.
All righty. Bye-bye. And everybody, take care and have a good rest of the weekend and a good tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Wow.